One more thing. So Robert Kiyosaki a couple weeks ago and Jim Rogers give moonshot predictions for gold and silver. It was an article, but he tweeted on July 17th. He said, quote, gold and silver are going to the moon. Then he said, legendary investor Jim Rogers. Jim states further that he priced gold and silver go to the moon, yet not without severe retracements. The world economy is in great trouble. I do not trust our leaders or central banks to solve the problem. In fact, they are the problem. And things like debt inflation will only go up. And he says, what are you going to do? Buy high, sell low. Gold and silver are going to the moon. But
Yeah,
yeah,
your debt's going much higher. There's no question about it. And we've seen through what we've done with Japan that we can't let rates go higher. And even though the market wants the rates to go higher, we see that when the Fed didn't raise rates a few weeks ago, yet the 30-year Treasury went up. That signals that the market is moving independently from the Fed. The Fed, signaled we're not going to raise rates, yet rates went higher. That's the market's way of saying, look, we don't trust your fiscal responsibility. It's very irresponsible. And we don't think you'll ever normalize your balance sheet. Now, when you see the U.S. come in to support the Japanese yen, supposedly, but really what it is to support our bond market, heaven forbid they sell, the world takes a look at that and says, ha ha, you guys are trapped. It's like a husband and wife who started painting their floors at opposite ends of the house and meet in a corner, and they're painted into the corner. You raise rates, you blow everything up. You increase inflation through easing. And then at the same time cap rates so that they don't go up. You are looking towards hyperinflation. And no one will trust us any longer, and no one will want our treasuries any longer when they realize that we can never normalize. We will never choose austerity over inflation. And this is why it is so important that I think the effort to devalue the dollar, largely through Tether. I believe that Tether is the proxy for the U.S. government to accumulate gold through the Genius Act. They've already bought more gold than anyone in the world but the Central Bank of Poland for the last 2 years.
that's crazy.
And I do believe, with Bo Hines as the CEO of USA Tether, who was Trump's crypto czar, that they are specifically taking the interest, which is not transferable from treasuries, which will back all money movement in 6 months, all of it, less than 6 months. That interest goes to buy gold, which devalues the dollar, which pushes the price of gold up, which will quietly be sold to the Treasury Department to keep the Treasury Department at arm's length from what they're trying to do, which is to accumulate lots of gold, use it to bolster their balance sheet, devalue the dollar, and they don't have to revalue gold like everyone talks about. They can let it happen organically. Now, they could market to market at some point, and they could revalue it at some point much higher down the road. Maybe they do. But the idea is to revalue gold organically. Maybe they do it synthetically down the road to make our balance sheet look better, to devalue the dollar. You don't devalue it against the dollar index. They're all currencies that are constantly devaluing against the dollar. That's Triffin's dilemma. Instead, you devalue it against gold. That is the one neutral reserve asset you value everything against. And as the dollar devalues, paying down our debt becomes easier. Reshoring and reindustrializing manufacturing and selling our product to the world becomes much easier. And that is the path they will take. So Jim Rogers is right, as is Robert. They're right that there is no path. If you raise rates high enough to tackle debt and to get things in line on the balance sheet, to bring down the cost of real estate, to make housing affordability more easily accessible to younger folks, all of these things, you blow up the economy because we've had 20, 30 years of suppressed interest rates that created distortions in asset prices, which have never normalized. And so if you have a whole generation of people that think their house is worth X and that their stocks are worth Y and that all of their assets are worth Z, but those were all created and accumulated through suppressed interest rates. You let rates rise, all assets fall in value because the cost of money goes up so much. And so I think what you have is an environment where they can't let rates rise because of the distortions and the misallocations of resource and capital and the distortions in price discovery and asset prices. We're screwed. So if they cap rates, the increase in money, if you look at M2, it's going to the moon, has to come out somewhere. That pressure has to be released, and it'll be released in higher prices through price inflation. So he's right. You will see much higher inflation, much higher asset prices. And the way that you win is to buy assets. And if that's stocks and bonds to you, or not bonds, don't buy bonds, but if that's stocks, fine. I'm not going to tell you not to do it because they could go much higher, but I do believe in terms of ounces of gold, gold will outperform the stock market. The stock market could go much higher. Precious metals could go much higher. Art, jewelry, rare wine, handbags, whatever that crypto, whatever that
Stuff.
asset is to you, you want to hold assets. You do not want to hold your money in dollars. And Jim and Robert are right, because if you do, you're going to go broke. After my interview with Paul Barron today, I am very much convinced that the younger generation is beginning to understand what we've been talking about for a long time. And that will happen through the bridging of the two communities. And you will find gold and silver becoming more 21st century, collateralizable, cross-border, these kinds of things like you see with crypto. Bitcoin solved digital scarcity. Silver and gold solve physical scarcity thousands of years ago. And the question is, what happens when physical scarcity gets digital rails? This is where you're going to see the young folks jump onto what we've been talking about. And then you're going to see what real physical demand looks like, not just a tepid industry where slowly getting bigger. People we've been talking to for a long time, this will be a whole new group of people who voraciously understand what's happening to our monetary system, but haven't chosen gold and silver, but I think they will now. And when Paul Barron says to me, I would have never called gold and silver money until the last 6 months when I've really been digging into this, that's coming from the very top of a guy that is very connected. And it gives me hope and makes me believe that, we got to keep talking to that community, because I think that the bridging of these two communities becomes very, very powerful for where gold and silver ultimately go price-wise.
Yeah, I got into Bitcoin when it was like $600. I think that's the earliest YouTube video I had you could find on here is like I'm making a video and you see Coinbase in the background and Bitcoin's price is like $600 and I'm showing people how to safely send it to a cold wallet and how to, buy and sell it and all that. But
Yeah, a cold wallet hack that we saw a month ago, kind of, or less,
that's
few weeks ago,
crazy.
really freaked me out,
Yeah,
where
that's
they
I
were
don't even
able
know how
to
that's
get all of
possible.
the seed phrases and hack
Oh,
cold
so he got
wallets
the
offline.
yeah, so the guy must have not written down the 14-word phrase on paper. He must have written it down on his computer
No,
somehow
no,
and then
no.
the
This
guy.
is they got a whole bunch of seed phrases, and I don't know
How?
how they did it, but
Wow.
it was 50 or 60 million dollars,
Wow. So,
and it had something to do with one of the manufacturers of the hard wallet, cold wallet. They were able to infiltrate that side of things and somehow get
wow.
everyone's seed phrase. So people's money
Yeah.
gone before, and they had no idea.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I use Exodus. That's the best wallet in my opinion, but if you really want to be safe, do a hard wallet because that's literally off. The only way someone can get that is if they break in your house. That's not even
No, that's
nothing
what
like
I'm talking about. In
yeah,
fact, let me just look it up here real
because
quick.
a hard wallet's different than a cold wallet.
Oh,
Like
well, that,
the Nano Ledger, like that's an actual device that you send the Bitcoin to, and then if you want to access it, you have to plug it into your PC and then type it in and then send it to a cold wallet. Um, or there's a paper wallet where it's literally just a piece of paper, the only way you can access it. But
it says the Bitcoin wasn't stolen from the physical cold card device. The attackers figured out the private keys because the wallet generation process had a cryptographic weakness. Researchers tied the attacks to a flaw affecting certain cold card firmware seed generation process. On July 30th, attackers swept 1,082.65 Bitcoin from 1,196 addresses in roughly 41 minutes. That's worth about 70 million at the time. Subsequent waves brought the identified losses much higher, roughly 1,816 Bitcoin, 116 million across more than 5,200 addresses, according to Galaxy's analysis. A hardware wallet normally works like this: generate random private key stays offline, public address is derived, Bitcoin goes to that address. The entire security model depends on one thing. No one else can reproduce your private key. In this case, the problem appears to have been weakness in the randomness used to generate certain seed private keys, which is scary as hell.
Yeah. Do you know what wallet that was?
Yeah, it was called.
Because I know you got to be heavily invested with all this because your company accepts Bitcoin. So I know this is something you got to pay attention to as well.
We use BitPay, so we
Yeah,
are one
okay.
step removed.
Dude, I was
But
the first person to mention BitPay on YouTube. There's a video of me driving in my car, and I got the BitPay card, which was the first Bitcoin debit card you can spend Bitcoin, and it was through BitPay. And I made a video, sponsored by BitPay. Says, "Is the BitPay card worth it?" And dude, that's so funny.
here's what it
Which,
says: the wallet brand was Cold Card, made by Canadian company CoinKite. It wasn't one single wallet. The vulnerability affected multiple Cold Card models. Cold Card MK2, MK3, particularly firmware versions 4.00 and 4.1.9. Cold Card MK4, Cold Card MK5, and Cold Card Q. The MK3 appears to have been the biggest concern in the initial wave. MK1 was not affected. And importantly, the devices themselves were not hacked remotely. The problem was that certain firmware generated Bitcoin seeds with insufficient randomness. Attackers could theoretically reproduce candidate seeds offline and search the public blockchain for addresses funded by those seeds.
that's that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
That's
scary,
crazy.
man. It just goes to show there is something nice about having your metal in your own possession, because these kinds of things that we once thought were, impossible to get to, it's just scary how fast technology is increasing. And these criminals are very sophisticated, very educated, very motivated. So it's
Yeah.
scary.
Do you see this on the computer?
Yes.
Is the BitPay card worth it?
Oh,
This
let
was
me in
nine
here.
years ago. Dude, I know. I looked so bad back then. Well, I was just skinny, and I think
You were young, man.
yeah, yeah,
We
that's
all look
funny.
different now.
Yeah. But yeah, 9 years
How
ago
many
I
years
made a
ago is that?
video.
9 years?
Yeah. I was talking about the BitPay card. That was like I was probably the first person to mention it because it was right when it came out or around the
Yeah,
time.
we use BitPay, so we don't actually accept it personally because of the KYC and AML
Yeah, know
issues.
your client. Yeah.
But we have them do it for us, and they
Yeah. It's
for a fee they pay us just like that.
it's the most legit for a business, 100% BitPay. But anyways, going back to, silver, and people are probably like, what the hell are they talking about? But yeah, what do you see? Do you think that 57 was the bottom? That 56, 57, and now we're just going to slowly start inching up?
Sure feels that way. I mean, you look at it from a technical standpoint, it broke through a falling wedge pattern. Technically, that's the one of the most bullish confirmations where you have a falling wedge, meaning it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And if it breaks up or down decisively, that pretty much tells you where things are going. And it has broken through pretty much
Hmm.
decisively. And since then, it's been up very nicely. So yeah, I mean, I do think you could argue that we have seen the bottom, and that from a technical standpoint, we're moving higher. And you look at the open interest that got shaken out during this last process. Um, it did a hell of a job on the psyche of the market. And though that happened, you look at the amount of deliveries. Like China bought more silver over the first quarter than in the history of the country as the price got destroyed. But we're seeing that be the case with both gold and silver for the last 6 months by the central banks, by Tether, by huge institutions are
As
using the rhetoric and the falling price to massively accumulate more without competition. And that's all you need to know. These people don't screw around, and they have used the the lack of open interest. They have used the lack of interest amongst the retail public. They have used the negative rhetoric by the mainstream to double down their acquisition. So yeah, I do think it's turned, and I do think that the big money understands this and understood it all along. And instead of selling like everyone in the West did, they've doubled down their purchasing over the last 6 months as the price moved away.